as I said there, I was, the first thing I got in the morning when I came here was a message from Bishop C. Jose, the Bishop of Tura, asking me for some papers. So I told him, don't disturb me now because I'm in a confused stage. I'll let you know in the evening. But anyway, whatever it is. In the first place, please put away your pens and papers. You will not need them. I am not going to take you into an intellectual exercise. I'm just going to drag you down to the earth. And then, thank you, Father, for the research. And one thing, I'm sure, once you hear the name of my diocese, Miao, you will never forget it because you have it in your house. Unfortunately, your Miao and my Miao are quite different. Miao is a Chinese name. In the famous conquest that took place in 1111 AD in the northeast, when many of these present tribes came in from Central Asia via China, Myanmar, Tibet, they traveled along a famous river called Digin, which is a tributary of the Brahmaputra. It flows from China into Myanmar and into India. So, those people who settled in the little place that we are in now, they named it in their dialect Miao, which means the passage of the wind. It's a valley with the river, as I said, flowing hundreds of kilometers through between the mountains and finally merging into Brahmaputra. And because of that location, we have real storms, winds, we call it wind. And these winds are so powerful from middle of January till the middle of May that they not just break down bamboo groves or banana trees, they uproot them. Generally you don't find wind uprooting banana trees, but these, they do that. But still, our people have survived all this, and that is how this name Miao came. One geographically nice thing is, when we are standing there, we are in the, I'm sure all of you are senior people. Nowadays, youngsters may not know because geography books don't contain those things. There is a mountain, the mountain range is called the Patkai Mountains. That is dividing India and Burma. On the other side, there is the Himalayas, which is dividing India and China. So now we are located in the Patkai Hills. Then we have the Brahmaputra or the Dihing River, and on the other side there is the Himalayan ranges, which is claimed by China. That is why if you look at Google looking for Miao, you may not find it. You may find it as a South Tibet. At least if you do it from outside India. Even Google calls it a South Tibet, and consequently Chinese claim that area. That's where our youngsters are very good at sports, but then they never get to participate in international events, especially if they are held in China, because China doesn't give them visas. They say, you can just go, don't worry, play with the Chinese team. But then poor fellows, they cannot. So many of them miss the chance to join in the international events held in China because China takes them to be part of their territory. Now that is just a little location. And by the way, I also say, as already somebody said there is the last corner of India. About 1 hour walk, we are in Myanmar, And any MF people here, missionaries of faith? Nobody. Yesterday they have appointed a bishop in our neighborhood in Myanmar, in the diocese of Mechina, missionaries of faith. He was a retreat in charge there in Mechina. They have appointed a bishop. He is our nearest bishop. So I could not register his name, but I know the place and the people. So I always say I can afford to misbehave a little bit because Rome cannot be transferred me any further. They can only take me to nearer to the mainland and no further. There's no place where they can go and put anybody else. But anyway, that is all for the fun of it. Now, the title of the topic that I'm supposed to talk about, that word mapping is included, so I'm going to stick to that. And you are free to put up your hands and stop me any moment. In fact, I would prefer that we talk rather than dioceses, 3 archdioceses and all that. Those days there were few dioceses and only one archbishop, Archbishop Hubert Rosario. I don't know if any of you knew him. He was a wonderful man, a great missionary. In fact, he was the rector of Don Bosco Matunga. And from there he was airlifted to this area and he did well. He adapted himself so well. And by the time we all came, he was an established missionary and a bishop. But one thing, he always took care. He visited, during this Advent season, he visited every hostel and seminary and aspirant of the religious and spoke to them. Now, Christmas season has come and you are going home. Remember one thing, you are in the mission land and your duty is each one catch one. So he was able to drill this idea into every young Catholic in this region, wherever we were. And because of that generation, or those generations, this idea remained. And in 1990, we had a big celebration here, the arrival of the first missionaries, the Salvatorian missionaries, the centenary of it. And it was planned in such a way that we had a 9-year jubilee. So from 1981 to 1990, we had a 9-year jubilee preparing ourselves for the centenary. After this centenary celebration, he came to where I was in Assam. At that time, we were not allowed in Arunachal Pradesh, so I was operating from outside. I had a residential school and I used to invite him, so finally he said, I am now centenary is over, I'll come down for 2 or 3 days, I'll just see those children and I'll relax. So he came and we used to move around, since he was also the Bishop of Dibrugarh at one time, he knew the places. As we were moving around, one evening he was telling me one thing. He said, look, I am not telling this to many people because they may not take it well, but I know you are in the mission and I am telling you this, carry this forward. And for me it has been a great inspiration. And this is, dear fathers, I don't know, many of you will also not like it, but that's the truth. See, in 1977, 78, when Morarji Desai government was in power, they passed the Arunachal Freedom Anti-Conversion Law called the Freedom of Faith Bill Arunachal Pradesh, 1978. It could not be stopped. But later, when Indira Gandhi came back to power in 1979, Archbishop Hubert, who had some working relationship with Indira Gandhi, he went to meet her along with the two leaders from Arunachal. One, Mr. Wanglet, who introduced the Catholic Church to Arunachal. He was a political leader, and a Baptist pastor called Langkap Younger. He was a man who is a Baptist pastor. Now he's based in Shillong doing translation, but a knowledgeable man. So these two went with the Archbishop to meet Indira Gandhi and told her, Madam, in your absence, disaster took place. This anti-conversion law has come. Now we are happy that you are back. Please get this law repealed. And Bishop told me, simply with a smile, she said, Bishop, it can easily be done, no problem. But tell me, how many Christians are you in Arunachal Pradesh? And Archbishop is Bishop in Shillong, and she's asking about Arunachal Pradesh. He did not know, so he asked Wanglet, who was the most educated man there, Wanglet, how many Christians? He said, I don't know, I am a politician, I don't know. So finally, they asked the pastor, how many Christians? And the pastor, to be very generous, he said, oh, we are about 500 Christians. And she simply laughed, the bishop told me, and said, go back. Come to me when you are 50,000 Christians. Because for 500 I cannot do anything. 50,000 people in Arunachal at that time meant 15 out of 30 constituencies of the MLAs. So she said, go, when you're 50 you come back. That's said by the Prime Minister of India. And it is told to me by Archbishop Hubert, who ordained me a deacon, whom we all follow as an inspiration, guide and leader. Now, this is the motto. This is the theology. This is the doctrine. This is the missiology that has been guiding us all through the past. I do agree operations are taking place now, even in our midst. We have slackened, there's no doubt about it. Different vocabularies have started creeping in our own conversations and in our own dialogues. But what shaped us and made us what we are in the Northeast is this conviction that the church must grow, not just in the volumes of books that we produce or in the structures, but in actual ground, on the actual ground. And I still believe that it is a need, especially when we are in the democratic setup on election day. I always say, once in 5 years, the Brahmin and the Shudra, they count one. That is on the election day. The vote of the highest Brahmin and the vote of the lowest Shudra is one during the election. Other day you may not. And if today we are a dreaded lot, or if we are a frightened lot, it is because we do not have 25% of the population. If it was there, we would not be what it is today. Today, what are we not scared of? We are scared of FCRA, we are scared of our schools being taken away, or we are scared of everything. And that's because we did not go for this. And so, whatever my experience that I'm going to talk to you, especially as we think about formation, we drew our greatest, unfortunately, I don't know, Father Stanis, did Father Silvanus teach you? Father Silvanus? No. So, he is the rector of our regional theology. So, they are already of a different generation. Our scripture professor, an indigenous tribal from Northeast, Father Silvanus, always told us, you ask a person, are you a Catholic? And if he says no, ask him why. And the infallible answer will be, because nobody told me to be. And I can tell you, I have tried this on many people. And I have heard this answer from many. Because nobody asked me, nobody told me. And from my life, I can also say this. When I started off as a priest in 1982 in Arunachal, as I said, we were not allowed to enter the place. You apply for the special permit with the name George and it would be denied. Rather, it would be, the policy that time was, you apply and apply, but no reply. They will never say no, but you will never get it. Mother Teresa told me in an interview with the Doordarshan that she applied 25 times, but she was never given the permission. And so we used to go quietly to some villages, very quietly. And those days, the only vehicles that would be passing on those roads would be either the army or the BRTF, the engineering group. And when we would see them coming, we would always go to the roadside as if we are going for number one. Because there they will not stop and ask questions. We lived in such a situation, but today, now our Panchayat election is coming. Within a few months, Panchayat election is coming. Yes, Father?
Permission for war and not for what?
Pardon? I'm talking about the Arunachal Pradesh, from where I come. The part of India, yes. So, India says it is part of India, China says it is part of China. But then, for your information, it's good that we know it. There are states in India, Arunachal and other places, it is much less. Arunachal, see, from the time of the British in 1865, they introduced a system called the inner line permit system. And the reason for that was the British people who were in Assam, either with the tea plantations or with the railways or oil, then on weekends they would go into those hills for hunting. Huge jungles, forests. So they would go for hunting on weekends. And so, before going into those hills, they had to register themselves and take a paper. So that by Sunday night, if they don't come back, they could go searching for them. So this is how the British invented and imposed this inner line permit. But unfortunately, after independence, under the inspiration of an Anglican pastor called Elvin Verrier, he came to India as a pastor. But then he found himself better off without being a pastor, and so he became an anthropologist. He married a Khasi girl from Shillong. She died only 2-3 years ago. He married a Bhil woman from Rajasthan, and he married one from somewhere in Madhya Pradesh, I don't know which tribe. So he had 3 wives, but our Prime Minister Nehru had a special fancy for him, and he was appointed as the advisor to the governor of Assam. What is Northeast today was one state, Assam. All these states were districts of Assam only. So Elvin Verrier was placed here in Guwahati along with B.K. Nehru, who is the cousin of Nehru. B.K. Nehru was the governor and this Elvin Warrior was his advisor. And so he concocted a theory in which he said the Nagas have all become Christians, and so there is rebellion in Nagaland. Mizoram is Christian. There is rebellion in Mizoram. And Arunachal Pradesh, that time it was called NEFA, Northeast Frontier Agency, one district of Assam. If these tribals come to know about Christianity, they will accept it. Therefore, keep them away from it. So they interpreted and applied the inner line pyramid system, not for those going and coming back, looking for them, but to prevent others from going inside. So anybody, in fact, we had a father called Father Terence D'Souza, 100% Indian, but he had the title D'Souza. Just for the fun of it, what I applied for him for the inner line permit, and they harassed so much. They said, you have to bring his passport and prove his nationality. D'Souza is not an Indian name. Now, how are we to educate them? So this was the system. Okay, so they're going away from where we were. So, such a place, today, declare the elections, and every member of the BJP will come to me saying, Bishop, we helped you so much, we did this, we did that, we did. Give us good candidates. Especially when it comes to the local elections, Panchayat elections, 33% is reserved for women. And they want some educated girls. They do not know, but we can. Congress doesn't say. Every party comes asking for candidates and for support, because they know that we know them and most of them are all Christians. So that change has taken place, and that became possible only because they know that we can make a difference. They know that. Of course, in today's regime, money speaks more than any other thing. We are simply throwing. Today, people in Northeast do not know lakhs. They know only crores. Because they are throwing like that. It doesn't reach everybody, reach the few muscle men, and they control the whole situation. But whatever it is, still the influence is there. So what I'm trying to come to is the Archbishop's saying, quoting Indira Gandhi, that remains a thing that still operates at the very back of the hard disks that we have of the whole country thinking. And in this context now, when we come down to seminaries, one thing I realize is when things have changed completely from those days when we were in the seminary. Yes, Father?
Before you go into the seminary part,
And my guide in the theology was Father Sebastian Pallipparambil, who was our dean at that time. But I had an unofficial guide outside. Mr. Jonathan was that time the district magistrate and the deputy commissioner of Shillong. He was an Arunachali tribal, the first tribal to get IAS, direct IAS, not promoting. And he had studied in St. Edmund's College and was also a lecturer there for a while. So he knew English well. So I had to, since we were friends, I told him, Mr. Thai, I want to do this study, but do it well. And so Father Pallipparambil will take care of his technical part, but I want you to help me taking care of this. So one condition he put was, brother, I was not ordained yet, still a deacon only. Brother, if you want me to help you, must never say that Donipolo is a religion. it is only a cult. I said I will stick to it. Then I went, I did a lot of research, afterwards I did my PhD on the same. So people never took it as a religion. And he insisted with me that you must write that Gegungappa, the chief minister of that time, under the inspiration of K. Raja, who was the governor, is the first missionary of the Donji Bolo. He only made it a religion. And it had come to almost a standstill. But now in the last 10 years, they are throwing money not only into Donji Bolo, even in our place like small indigenous things which we never had thought of. They're getting crores every year. They're doing it. In fact, one district in our diocese, which is the only district in India, where 99.9% of the people are Christians. Only 5 families are non-Christians. But in the last 3 years, these 5 families have become so vociferous, they are ready to challenge the rest of us. Because they have money and the machinery with them. If a local police is in fact, in that township, one man, a government employee, put up a cross 2 years ago. But these 5 families managed to get it removed. Because the central government and their money is with them. So they are making this effort and they are greatly successful. But I have my serious doubt whether it will be really a lasting success. Because when the money is over, they will also stop. Secondly, in my knowledge or my thinking, they will take advantage of the money that they will get, but they may never disown their faith. This is the hope that I have. I don't know if I've answered your... Okay. So now the seminary life completely has changed from what we went through. I think all of us know that. And probably for most of you, and for me also, it is still a mystery how we can combine this. Simplest example is, what do we do with the mobile? We allow or we do not allow? No, I think all are allowed. I don't know if there's any place where it is not allowed. But yes.
We don't allow when in the seminary, go up. Rush on seminary. We don't allow.
Okay.
They are allowed only to use one phone for a group.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then if you are able to continue with it, thank God. But then I don't know if they will have it under the pillow. No, but see, I'm not talking about the reality, but then the fact. What do we decide? Any amount of pros and cons, we cannot come to a real conclusion, which did not exist in our time. Our formators only just have to say this or that. Now here we are confronted with one thing that we read in the Gospel last Sunday, where that scholar comes to Jesus and asks him, which is the greatest commandment? And it never struck me like last Sunday. Jesus very smartly did not give him an answer where he said, don't commit adultery, don't murder, don't do this, don't. He simply told, love God and neighbor. So, his answer had only do's and not don'ts. Now, can we come to a situation like that? I don't know. Today, we are facing innumerable problems in the church, especially with our clergy. How do we address this? And from last Sunday I began to believe that it's only when we are able to come to that conclusion, like Jesus, and say, you do this. One sentence answer. But how to coin that one sentence is not an easy way. But somehow I think we have to reach there. Somehow we have to reach there. It has to be a very concerted and concentrated, well-considered effort. Today I think we are having more don'ts than do's. And that is only making it very unappealing to our own younger generation. And for this, I will interestingly tell you something. One of our salesian priests here in the Northeast is doing very well. If I say the name, those from here will know him, so I will not say the name. He is doing well placed in the society today. He stayed on in Shillong to do his MTH. He finished his MTH and he came and he was put as my assistant and a headmaster. So he came like a real scholar. He did not bring his breviary. And he told me as he came, I spent 6 years in the theology. They tried to teach me. So, don't try to teach me. I will not. Anyway, we used to be having the morning prayers every morning. And he would just sit there. Though we had extra books, he would never open. So finally, after 2 days, I started sitting near him and started showing him my book. Few days he did not look at it. After a few days he started looking at it. After a few days he took one of those everyday prayers which was extra in the church. And after about 3 months he told me, I would like to go to Shillong. I have some of my things left there. My breviaries are also there, the 3-volume breviary. And you believe me, he brought it. And he started saying, he started using it. He still has it. So I did not tell him that you should join. But he had the basic goodness in as much as he did not walk away when we were saying the morning prayers. He sat there, he just sat there, sat like a stone. But then eventually he became very active. And when the provincial was looking for somebody to take over after me, I could tell him, come on, you will manage, you do it, and it took it up. So I do not know whether, this is possible in one case, whether we have to build up a system in which we can anticipate this kind of resistance to anything that is traditional or anything that is told. At the same time, change that resistance into something positive. So I'm only just putting it to you. And I'm sure this is not the only case. There will be cases like this everywhere. And probably at the end of it, they may be the best people. They may be the best people that we can have after a little change of attitude. Now, how we can bring this about is a question that we have to answer. Probably, as St. Thomas says, answer it on our knees. Our human wisdom alone may not be able to give us the solution. So, this is one point that I would like to, a confusion that I would like to throw before you. This confusion, because though we have only minor seminary, all our grown-up ones are sent to Father Stanley and Father Emmanuel and all that sitting here, it is their problem, not our problem. But at the same time, it is our problem because they are going to come back to us, and we need to enter the church to them. So we can't say that it is their problem and escape from it. No, but ultimately it becomes our problem. And how do we address this? That is why this confusion I am throwing to you. Now coming back to the northeastern context, as I said about the number thing, the one first thing that we have to realize is we need the conviction that ours is a missionary call. When Jesus called his first disciples, he made it very clear, I will make you fishers of men. He never changed that. He never changed that the years that followed. And so, every one of us who is called to be a priest, particularly in a country like India, where we still boast that we are only 2% of the population or 2.5% of the population, we have to have that conviction that ours is essentially a missionary call. In whichever place we are, in whichever context we are, or whatever be the job that is assigned to us. And if this call is in us who are in authority today, in one way or other, and we are able to pass this conviction on to the others effectively, I think our church will become much more vibrant and absolutely fearless. Absolutely fearless. Some 3 years ago, we had some event here in Guwahati, in which the Salesian Dr. Major was here. And so I told him, Father, today I am getting an impression that we have become, as a church in India, we have become like a defeated army. We are just bundled up and put into the camp. We are waiting to be executed. We have no hope. We have no fight left within us. We are just groping in the dark. We are struggling to exist. I still believe that it is to an extent correct. And I had thought the same thing about Asia. But now, the last 2 years, I've been going to all of the bishops' conferences of Asia, and I find that we are the only ones like that. Any other country in Asia which received faith much later than us, they are much more vibrant. In the month of June, we were with the bishops and some of the leaders of Vietnam, and they were telling us that in preparation for the Great Jubilee 2033, not the 2025, okay, 2033, they already had a conference in which they decided that today the Catholic population of Vietnam is 8%. But on 25th December 2033, it will be 16%. We are going to work, we are going to pray, we are going to conduct ourselves in such a way that our Catholic population will double. It is a resolution or decision of the church in Vietnam, not an individual bishop or a seminary, but the collective church. We find such vibrancy in those countries. And when we look at any other country, but only in India we boast that Christianity is 2000 years old. In fact, now I begin to tell people, I am beginning to doubt whether St. Thomas ever came to India. And in this context, I'll tell you again, in 2018, on Christmas time, maybe 2 days, or 23rd or 24th, I forget, I got a call from one of the sisters. And she was so excited. And the reason was, that particular mission, the convent is nearer to the parish church than the presbytery. So the people were making the crib, and two young men was a panchayat president and the government school headmaster. They were also there, and then they needed a pair of scissors. So they said, okay, we will go to the sister's place and get the scissors and come. They went there, rang the bell, and sat there in the parlor. And next to the parlor is the chapel, and the superior was in the chapel. So she heard the bell and got up, and as she was about to come to open the door and ask them, she heard them talking. They continued their normal conversation. And so this Panchayat president was telling the headmaster, St. Thomas made a mistake. Why did he go to Kerala? If he had come to Arunachal Pradesh, by now the whole of Arunachal would have been Christian, and we would have made the whole of India Christian. And this sister was from, of all places, Pala, where they claimed to be daughters of St. Thomas. No? She could not believe this, and she gave them the scissors, and she called me afterwards and said, Bishop, they were talking like this. I said, sister, why are you surprised? Are they not right? Are they not right? Now, jokes apart, there are people who think like that. There are people who think differently from what we say. And are they not? Or are they completely wrong? So somewhere, something has taken place where we misinterpreted or missed the train or missed the coach, whatever it is. So now this is the time for us to correct it in our stages of formation. I think we need to boldly go on it. And another thing that I found with the church, the other Asian churches and Indian churches, thank God we have that one, the Bible is saying that our saint from Tamil Nadu. Yes. Thank God, for sample's sake, we have one martyr. But if we go into any of these countries, Burma or Thailand or Korea or Japan, anywhere you go, you have hundreds of local lay and few clergy martyrs. Which means the faith was really planted into the lay people and into their families. When we study the martyrs of all these Asian countries, this is what we find, which unfortunately did not take place in India. And so, if there is lethargy, if there is lukewarmness in our younger generation, in our priests, in our seminarians, because it did not grow from the blood of martyrs. It grew from a very easy climate, air-conditioned climate. Now we don't have to persecute them, but we have to find some way in which we can plant this seed of that conviction in them that ours is a missionary vocation. Now, here again, I had a little trouble some years ago with the propaganda fide, because I took a priest from one of the small congregations, and they wrote a very serious letter, 7-page letter, quoting all the canon laws, saying this bishop is stealing our person, and we are a small missionary congregation, and if all the bishops take one each, our congregation itself will be finished. So they sent me a letter, explain. I explained. I said, I don't know all the canon laws that they have quoted. I know only one canon law, that is the last one. Yes. This young man told me that I would prefer to leave priesthood than be with them. So I decided to give him a chance. And for my inquiry, I never heard any complaint about him. Now you can tell me what you want to do. But along with it, I would like to ask you to make a little inquiry. Find out how many missionaries this congregation has got in South America, Africa, North India, and how many in USA, Canada, Switzerland, Germany. They never replied. Neither the congregation nor the propaganda fee, they never replied. 12 years are over. So, some kind of misplaced motivations that youngsters get also is sometimes in some of our, that has to be set right in our formation. And this again comes to what I said about the confusing state that we have and the lack of clarity that we have about our missionary vocation. When we are able to implant in them for the certainty that this missionary vocation, it may take us to various places. Maybe, who knows, one may be a pilot even. Today we have people in software and hardware, so why not in the army and in the air force? Listening? In fact, I have been telling in the CCBI in our some of the meetings, I have been telling that we have to close down one theology somewhere and convert that into an IAS and IPS coaching center for priests who are young priests in their third year of ministry. Select proper ones and coach them up so that tomorrow they can be administrators. Why not? Instead of crying that all are against us, why don't we fill up our places with these men? And many of them are capable of doing that. And it is, for me, it is justified because there are so many principals who never attend a parish function. Yeah. So many principals who their cassocks can walk without them because they are so well kept during the school hours. But when there is a feast going on, when there are hundreds of people in the line for confession, they can never go there. If such people can exist, why can't a person be a district magistrate? So, here again the whole thing comes back to this conviction that whatever we are, whether I be a district magistrate or a principal or a warden, I am a missionary. My vocation to priesthood is a vocation to a missionary, to be a missionary. So, this is the conviction that we have had, and our rector here, he seems to be also insisting on that. But of course, one thing is we can tell, we cannot impose. But when all of us begin to talk the same language, probably it might make a difference. But when there are many voices, many opinions, it may not be effective in any way at all. And along with it, in our context here in the Northeast, one thing that I would like to point out, which I am sure will also work in other places. What we are talking about these days, serenality. To be very honest, I have never been taken up by this entire. Now recently, you know that in Italy they called it circus. Day before yesterday, one deacon sent me an article from America. There also, they have called this whole exercise, the synod and all what went into with this synod of serenality, they are calling it a circus. Now, whether they are right or wrong, see, the uniqueness of the church here has been that we always grew up in that context. Our lay people, in fact, I remember once, you are all aware of the two parallel associations that we have got, the Catholic Association of India and the All India Catholic Union of the lay people. There are two parallel associations. The All India Catholic ICU, they call, is something slightly anti-clerical. And so all their discussion. So we have here in Northeast only one. Both these we have managed to put together and there's no conflict. So these people went for a meeting and then some of the ICU leaders, they said, national leaders, they said, you have to question this, the father, blah, blah, blah. So our fellow said, why are you talking about? We don't have any of these problems. Because from the beginning, they used to be involved in the church. They are the church, they know that. And so, to talk to them about involvement, participation and all that did not mean anything to them, or does not mean, because they know that they are the church. And that's why I said they will never disown the church, because otherwise they will have to disown themselves. And so this has to be brought up to every part of India. And this has to be conveyed to our seminarians in the formation level. Somehow today it has become such a job-oriented life. I don't say training. I know you are all doing. In fact, I write Father studies every now and then say, Father, what can we do? It's a timeless job that you are doing. As long as they are there, they will somehow tolerate. But after that, what they do, we are not sure. But in spite of that, somehow we have to bring this conviction to them that the church is a participatory body. The church is a family. It's a collective responsibility. And this was so here, and it is supposed to be so everywhere. And so if we can, here I'm only just saying something that we have gone through, but how it can be done, I cannot say. And I don't think you can say it either straight away. But maybe more and more discussion about some of these aspects may help us better. So that is one thing where we need to address. This will ultimately lead us to what we call clericalism. All of us are aware of it, but what can we do about it? And people resent this greatly. People resent clericalism of any kind. And basically what is clericalism? It is just the lack of involvement of others. So whether it be in decision making or carrying out decisions, if we can get think as one and work it out and bring it out in a convincing way during our formation. Somehow we were, in fact, when we were just new priests, Archbishop Hubert used to call us, the whole of Northeast, any one of us who worked in a little difficult situation, he would call us once in a year. Whether we be diocesanes or Salesians or Holy Cross, whoever we were, those of us who were involved in a little difficult mission, he would just call evening, we would sit together, discuss, share, and next day after breakfast go away. So that gave us that feeling that we are part of a church. For him, there was no reason to do that except for his love for the mission. Today, all that is gone. So, I don't know where to begin, where to end, but I think that is the only way forward. Any amount of discussion, any amount of documents will not make this happen. Then, one infallible thing is our stress on the Word of God. And it is so, all the more here in our region, forced upon us, because any state of ours has got 100 dialects. If I say Mass in my so-called cathedral in Miao, I will have at least 25 language groups there for a single Sunday Mass. So, how do we give them the Word of God in all these dialects? And sacraments become all the more difficult. We had a Slovenian priest. Many years ago, he was in Manipur and in Nagaland. Father Bernick, I don't know if you remember Father Talis. He always told us that any place he said Mass in the dialect, consecration he would say in English only. Because he was afraid that his pronunciation would be any word slightly wrongly pronounced, they could take it otherwise. They could laugh or cry or get angry. So he said, whether it was Sangami or Lotha or Rongme, he always said the consecration in English because he didn't want the people to misinterpret the Mass. That is the situation in which we are. So, for us to explain the sacraments is not going to be easy. Father Jason is a catechism man, and he will probably know it better than I can explain. See here, if we take the example of these areas, in the Hindi land you say, Pavitra Misa Atan Karega. But in Assamese, Misa means lie. It means lie. So, you could invite them for a lie. Yeah. And then in English, if we tell them Mass, Mass means meat. So like that, interpretations can be so different. While if we try to explain the word to them, which the Protestants have succeeded, we will be able to give it better, make it a better, more understood. And then eventually proceed from that to the sacrament. I had, our Catholics in Arunachal, in my area or anyway, first baptisms were only in 1979. And this can be done only by making our future priests aware of these difficulties in the formation time. that many of the vocabulary that we use today may not even be understood by the people. We use the Greek and the Hebrew and Latin, but these people have never heard about these. And so, my dear fathers, as I said, I am here to confuse you more than confront you. But if you carry some confusion along with it, after dirtying the water, stirring the water, it clears up. So, I hope we can come to something clear for our in view of our seminarians, only out of love for the church. Because if we want our church to really be what Jesus said, the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. We need to make sure that it doesn't happen. We need to have people who are willing to carry forward that faith, that torch of faith. And for this, our giving maximum importance to the Word of God is a must. Word taken by the people as their own, as something that touches their lives, as part of their lives, as something that can be interpreted into their lives. Because our latest terminology is BEC, though in FBC 50 has gone further and said re-baptize BEC into BHC, basic human communities. Just like the handicapped children, we will continue changing the names, but whether the gospel and its message comes down to the people or not, I do not know. By making it accessible and usable by the ordinary people only, our faith can be strengthened. I am the Catechetical Commission Chairman. We have rebaptized that now into Commission for Faith Formation. We will carry on these rebaptisms and change of names. But whether it really makes the people better equipped in their faith is a question. And that is the same. This equipping has to be done at the seminary level, especially at the philosophy and theology. I think philosophy time is a little more listening time than theology time. Theology time, probably they are already coming as hard-hearted. And much of what we say may not go inside. But philosophy time, for sure, they will take in at least 80% of what we say. So, I don't know how and where it can begin and how it can be taken. Now, I have many more things of this kind to say, but I would like to leave for a few minutes so that you really, those of you who did in between, thank you, but I would like you to say, ask whatever you want to say now, because I see that time is going.